Well, there's a lot of speculation about what the Fed's going to do. Some think they're going to start lowering rates aggressively. But if what we really need, and it's going to be painful, is we need to go into a recession. It's the only way we're going to cure this runaway inflation. I'm old enough to have gone through a lot of these cycles. And the only thing that's really going to address the cost of living increases that we're seeing is to go into a recession. That'll put downward pressure on prices, which we desperately need. I wish that weren't the case, but capitalism is driven by greed. And when I was a youngster in elementary school and in high school, actually, if the teacher had to be out of the room for a little bit, they'd give you some kind of busy work to do and tell everybody to be quiet. Well, as soon as the teacher left the room, the students began to cut up and misbehave. Knowing that they were going to get caught and there's going to be punishment, they just couldn't resist. Well, that's sort of the way it is with capitalism. The greed that makes the engine run also makes it run off the cliff. And that's really necessary. We've got to have the downside to correct for the excesses and the damaging effect that's had on our economy. So time will tell. I don't have a crystal ball. Wish I did. I'd been one of the 1% instead of one of the 99 percenters. But at any rate, I mean, it would be, people talk about a soft landing, but maybe if it's going to be a soft landing, it'll be the first one I've seen in 77 years. So I'm wishing us all a lot of luck. This will be a short video. That's all I had. I keep watching the speculation about the Fed, you know, on CNBC and other places. And history tends to repeat itself. So we'll see. Thank you for indulging this moment of having my patience tested. There it is. I don't want to leave that video clip that I'm assembling for my next YouTube posting on a negative note. For those who are not in debt or have very little debt and have any kind of money put back whatsoever, we benefit from a recession because it makes our dollars more precious, because the price of things we buy will be cheaper. Unfortunately, according to one report I read, we've hit a new record of consumer debt. And those people are going to hurt. I've been following a channel on YouTube about the crash that's coming in car prices, and the amount of repos are getting to be on an epic level. And this is just the first things, first signs of what's coming. So for the people that are too far in, it's going to be really rough, particularly since the banks 10 years or 15 years ago pushed through Congress a thing which made filing personal Chapter 7 very, very difficult, although not impossible. So I'm afraid a lot of people are going to have to go that route. In the housing bubble, when that blew up in 2008-9, the backlog in bankruptcy court was over a year. And we'll probably see that again. See, that on a personal note, if you live beyond your means, you're like a man running downhill. It's almost impossible to stop without just crashing. And man, that's terrible road rash to do that. But hopefully the audience that I'm addressing with these videos are people who are in a position to do some investing, and so are more prudent with their financial decisions than the average guy. I hope so. If not, my heart goes out to you. I had a thriving business back in the mid 80s until the crash of 87. I was on track to be doing over $1 million revenue a year. But I was expanding so fast, I put nothing back, thinking it was never going to end. And so I was doing about 400,000 a month sales. And then the crash of 87 came and my revenue dropped to zero. If I had put back some money, say even 10% of my sales revenue, I could have continued in business, because in about 6 months, my potential customers would have started buying again. But when the crash hit, if you're not old enough to remember the 87 crash, it was so bad that the stock exchanges questioned whether or not they're going to be able to even open up and do business the following Monday. That's how bad that was. That's the worst crash in my lifetime. So I do know the pain of that. And so, but it had a happy outcome once I got over the shock and the steps I had to take to get out of that mess. The rest of my career was prosperous, not to that level, but made a good living. So, life is a lesson. It's ongoing. And hopefully you learn from those lessons. After the crash of 87, within a few years, when I got my financial house in order, I never again went into debt, except for a house. But if I bought a car, I paid cash. So I just didn't. So see, the last The first car I bought after the crash of '87 was a 1985 full-size Dodge van, and paid cash for that. I gave it away when I got put 225,000 miles on it, which is a remarkable term of services for a vehicle of that vintage. I gave it to a fellow and ran into him a few years back. He was still driving that thing and had 260,000 miles on it. That's a good vehicle. In the life of the vehicle, I think I spent about $7,000 in maintenance, but I got rid of it in, I think, 1999. So that's 85 to 99. That was one of the cheapest vehicles I've ever owned. Anyway, I'm rambling now. But there's no substitute for being liquid and not in debt. Something like a house always has a intrinsic value, and even if that value drops, like it did in the housing bubble, to speak to that point, for example, I bought a house 10 years ago after the or so, I can't remember precisely, but it was after that the housing bubble burst, and I bought a house that was repossessed, and the person that bought the house originally when it was new paid nearly $400,000 for it, and I bought it for $147,000. But even then, I took a 15-year mortgage instead of 30. So when I got rid of it 6 years later, I had nice equity built up in it. Anyway, like I say, I'm rambling. But one thing about listening to people like myself that have been around for a long time and paying some attention to it is it's a way to possibly avoid the same kind of mistakes that they have made and to profit from it. So at any rate, now back to my video and my channel for a moment. If you will, hit subscribe and notify, and if you like the video, hit like. I would appreciate that. Okay, we're all on the roller coaster. We're strapped in, we're up at the top. Whoa!